Hi everybody, I'm the inspirational Andy Murray from WhatCulture Wrestling, and remember, the proof is in the pudding, so don't eat it, you stupid prick. You're gonna need the evidence for when you get accused of crimes. What have we got coming up today?
Paul Heyman's got a new backstage fave.
I'm going to tell you all about the backstage reaction to Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff.
I'm going to shock you here. Triple H might be getting some protection from the company.
Oh, goodness gracious me. And how about the crazy TV taping situation going down in the UK in November?
There's also the sad news about the death of another wrestling legend. This is
El News.
El Newso.
Let's get going with the very first story. We have seen this very week WWE programming take on a few new, edgier themes. We saw Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley beef the hell out of each other to start off Raw. They went through the LED board, to which Corey Graves went, holy sh... After that, of course, we got on SmackDown, Kofi Kingston going like that to Samoa Joe. Rude, not very nice, not very becoming of a nice guy like Kofi Kingston. Anyway, this is all...
Though.
Yeah, big pop. Almost as big as Big E. Now, this is all part of a greater scheme, apparently, according to good old Shiggity Shagger Dave, the legend of the shagging, on Wrestling Observer Radio. Him and Brian Alvarez spoke about how WWE were trying to introduce these edgier elements of their programming in order to try and entice teen viewers back to the product. Now, there's a little bit more to this, as Adam Cleary's about to get into on his story once we've wrapped up this one. But Meltzer was also asked, interestingly, about how this would affect the PG era, which has obviously been WWE's TV rating for over a decade now. Some guy on Twitter here asked, does Kofi giving Joe the finger last night mean that WWE are pushing towards leaving the PG era behind? A lot more cursing and edginess is happening now. Dave's response? Yes. So there we go.
That's quite exciting though, isn't it, in a way? It sucks if you're a little one.
It does.
It really does suck if you're a little one, because they've put so much stock into appealing to children the last however many years.
Yeah.
They're just going to... I mean, granted, all those children they appeal to will eventually be teenagers, so it's not the end of the world, but if I was like 5 or 6 and really into WWE and all of a sudden my parents are like, yeah, I don't know if you should be watching, you know, the big punk rock chicken covered in ink swearing all the time, or this nice Kofi Kingston man giving someone the finger, that would suck. But you can see, we're not going to call them rattled by AEW, but they are obviously, knowing that some of the audience could leave for the things they want over there, they are going to have to try and appeal to it, because that's the very nature of competition. Yeah, and I would take this with like a slightly arm's length approach here, a pinch of Shagger Dave, I guess. Take it with a pinch of arms then.
Yeah, because the thing about this is the PG thing is so good for WWE and their advertisers and the sponsors and so forth that it's hard to see them ever completely abandoning it, but definitely something to keep track of.
Well, yes, and in other slightly related news to this, in their attempts to appeal to a more teen audience, don't know if you remember, my friend, earlier in the week, not to toot my own cock here, toot, but I said, do you know the thing about Ricochet is, if I was a teenager right now, I would genuinely believe he was a superhero. Well, turns out that Paul Heyman is incredibly big on Ricochet, hence why he's main event of the last 2 Raws, because precisely he has that superhero aesthetic. He pulls off these moves which are otherworldly, and as a result, if they're going to be moving into appealing to this teenage audience, they are going to try and slice a little bit of that Marvel pie popularity, because he's got that. He's just different, isn't he? Like, I know we like to present wrestlers as superheroes and that they fight for good and they fight for justice and look, they're big and tall and strong, but they don't have superpowers beyond merely clapbacks and being able to lift much heavier men. But Ricochet, he flies through the air, he soars through the sky, he contorts his body in ways you did not know a body could be contorted, and thus, according to Shiggity Shagger Dave on Wrestling Observer, Paul Heyman is incredibly hot on him for using him on Raw. I can't say I'm surprised.
No, not at all. Imagine if you're a teenager and you're watching Ricochet doing all his flippy-dippy-doo-dah-days all around the ring, all that stuff. It's probably like the most mind-blowing experience ever, because he is one of the most dazzling high flyers, one of the most dazzling athletes in the game today. Obviously, there's a lot more to his game than that.
Yes.
Calm yourselves down in the comment section. But no, this makes a lot of sense. If you want to appeal to that younger age group, Ricochet is probably an ideal guy to push.
We talked about this the other day, actually. Obviously, they put the United States title on him now. Do you think he's somebody that could put the actual big belt on somewhere down the line? If they're that hot on him and they want to move to this kind of audience, it makes sense, but I never saw him as that sort of level for them.
It's hard to say, because Ricochet, for all his talents in the ring, he's not the best talker. He's not awful, but he's not the best talker in the world. And typically Vince McMahon, when he'll obviously have the final say on this, of course, but he likes big characters and people who can cut a promo, pal. So it's kind of hard to pass judgment on that. I'd love to see it on the strength of his ring work, if that is indeed strong enough to transcend any worries they might have. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Let's talk about Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff overall. Now, obviously, when these guys were brought in last week, I would say that the response among fans was largely optimistic. There was a little bit of pessimism in there because it's hard not to be pessimistic and cynical with WWE. But for the most part, people were like, oh, it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting. Anything new at this stage should be welcomed. Well, it looks like WWE's backstage response hasn't quite been as positive. It's been pretty mixed. And this comes from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com, so there's really no reason not to believe it because he's one of the best in the game. He has basically spoken to, and Fightful in general have spoken to a number of people backstage about what they think about it, and unlike a lot of fans online, they weren't all of a sudden optimistic for the future. One of them said that they think that Heyman's familiarity with the roster and his willingness to go the extra mile will be a positive, obviously. Reactions, however, ranged from the kind of faint praise along the lines of it couldn't possibly get any worse, and pessimism because, and I quote, Vince is still in charge, so that's all you really need to know.
I'm kind of saddened by this because we said like last week when it all got announced, it's to be greatly received because any kind of a change creatively was, exactly as they say, it couldn't get any worse. And we saw, it didn't set the world on fire, but there were more positive signs of both Raw and SmackDown this week. Things looked to be slightly more consistently booked. We got a couple of nice twists. The matches were good. It wasn't like the greatest episodes of television ever, but there was a definite noticeable improvement on the weeks prior, and we wanted to put the credit for that not wholly at the feet of Heyman and Bischoff. We know they're going to be eased into these roles, but it was a good first start. Yeah. It gave us reason to be positive. I was really disappointed. I'm disappointed to hear this.
You bunch of moany guys.
I don't really understand how. Because I saw somebody say, oh, it could even be worse if anything. I don't get how. Yeah. Like they're way more in tune with the average wrestling fan.
Bischoff maybe not, but Heyman absolutely.
I would imagine Bischoff talks to more wrestling fans than Vince McMahon does.
Yes, more than
I
zero.
I would imagine he watches more wrestling than Vince McMahon does.
Watches the channel.
Yeah. I just can't see how it could be worse than that post-stomping ground.
Yeah, it's a real bummer, that, isn't it?
It is.
A real bummer.
But again, as he says, some of it is positive and some of it is mixed. So, and I imagine a lot of the superstars are waiting to see precisely what happens. They've probably got their own axes to grind. Yeah, not everybody's going to be happy backstage. Yeah. Right? Speaking of everybody being happy backstage, I want to escape your attention at the time when Heyman and Bischoff was announced. There was one name missing from that we all thought, oh, where's Triple H?
Where's Hunter?
They like to promote from within WWE or just hire from reality television, whatever works for them. And we thought it was a bit odd that Triple H, the one man in WWE currently overseeing a successful brand in terms of story and in-ring action and developing talent, and all the things you're going to want to do on one of your two flagship shows, him not getting the call seemed a bit strange. And we've heard a number of mixed reports since then that he was perhaps offered it, or perhaps he wasn't, or he's offered he could only do it if he could split it with NXT and he didn't want to do that. Perhaps he didn't want the role because he was enjoying too much in developmental. But a bit of speculation today. It's a combination of both Shiggity Shagger Dave and 411 Mania. Dave did say it was very telling that he didn't land one of the roles, as in, it's not going to be, a bit of a shoulder shrug with this one. There's going to be a very good reason why he didn't get it. Now, we don't quite know what that is yet, but the speculation from 411 Mania is that the company might be protecting him. Long term, they see him as the replacement for Vince, not necessarily the replacement for managing one of the individual brands. And if he was to go to, say, a SmackDown, for example, and the ratings did not pick up and they had trouble with Fox, that would then land squarely at his feet, and it could not so much sour his reputation, but certainly hurt his development as a company man if they see him as eventually being the guy who will sort of bypass the Heymans and the Bischoffs of this world and sit right at the very top of the table. Now, we should say again, this is purely speculation, so take it with a pinch of speculalt or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I could buy that.
Yeah,
I could totally buy that.
Absolutely, because there's no guarantee this Fox deal is going to go well. Recently there was talk that if Fox don't get their 3 to 3.5 million viewers every week, they might even pull out. They apparently have some kind of clause in there for this $1 billion TV deal. So it would represent a big...
You would think, yes, but it's some kind of safeguard.
Certainly hope so. This would represent a massive risk to a man of Triple H's promise he's the heir apparent to Vince McMahon in WWE. He has been forever. Yeah, I can totally buy into this, even though it's just spiggity speculation.
But at the same time, you've got to say, if they want to give him the keys to the kingdom, they want him to sit on Vince's throne. Would literally mean, by that I literally mean the toilet adjacent to his office, which we know he has, with 5 padlocks on it. Surely you need him to cut his teeth on TV at some point. You can't just take him from NXT and go, hey, you did a good job in developmental, mate.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can run the whole thing now.
Yeah, your developmental crowd's of 300.
You would think that part of the criteria for him taking over from Vince is him being able to run TV at some point, and surely giving him one of the brands.
But you know what? That sounds like a them problem.
That sounds like a them problem, yes, we'll just report on it.
Speaking of them problems, they're doing something really weird. Really weird with TV tapings in November when they come over to the UK. Yeah, it kind of does. So they were WWE were originally supposed to have a Raw TV taping in Glasgow, Scotland, greatest nation in the world, worst city in the world. Come at me, Ouija's, on November 11th. That was kind of cancelled recently. The show is still going ahead with the same talent. However, it's going to be a house show. So when people got these emails through after buying tickets, they were kind of like,
what the hell?
What's going on here? Well, guess what WWE are doing instead?
What are WWE doing instead?
They are going to tape Raw and SmackDown on the same show, 5 hours of TV tapings, in Manchester on the Friday. So,
back to back.
Back to back.
On the
same goddamn show. So basically the show's going to start at 4:30 in the afternoon. SmackDown will obviously air later that night on Fox, and is BT by then in the UK?
Yeah, BT by then.
BT in the UK. Raw will air 3 days later, a 3-day delay for Raw. This is kind of mental, and I'll tell you what, if AEW don't do some Eric Bischoff WCW crap on being the elite and kind of like parody angles that they know are going to happen on the 3-day taped Raw, I will be very disappointed, because that pettiness is what I want.
Now, purely speaking from experience, I have been at wrestling TV tapings, which have only lasted 4 hours. And my God, they are a marathon of clapping and endurance and sitting down and carefully managing your drinking. Bear in mind, this is in Glasgow, right?
Manchester now.
Oh yeah, this is in Manchester. The regulation of one's own drinking habits, because you're going to end up with like quite a chilled out crowd for one show. Everybody just, I mean, you saw the NXT UK tournament tapings, didn't you? Like, they filmed them all in one go, and then so the first couple of matches, everyone's like, yes, this is good wrestling. And by everyone's like, Ken! Get ready, head up!
The Raw after Mania was bad enough. Like, the opening segment, Becky and Seth and Kofi and all these people were like, yes, come on! And then by the end, they're like, oh, it's
the bar!
Cesaro.
What?
Beach balls.
Yeah, I don't think that helped. I mean, the reaction they were after WrestleMania got, I don't think it helped with how tired everyone was after 4 consecutive days of nothing
after a
but
12-hour WrestleMania show.
This is a weird move on their part, and I don't know, I get the impression something's gone on here that's made them advertise it one way, then send tickets out another way, and then change their mind and do it the most bizarre way out of the 3.
Guess it'll all come out in the wash.
It will, yes. A bit of sad news, though, before we move on, and that is Perro Aguayo, notable Mexican wrestler through the 70s and 90s, was often compared to your Terry Funks and your Bruno Sammartinos of his day. I've read, for a willingness to brawl and overpower his opponents, he has sadly passed away yesterday at the age of 73. Now, we haven't had fully confirmed reports of his cause of death yet, but that is quite sad, given he was struck by personal tragedy a few years ago when his son died in the ring. Not really too much to say. He is a AAA Hall of Famer. He was actually WWF's first ever light heavyweight champion, but they don't record the people who held the belt before 1997. So he's not officially in the record books, but he is unofficially their first ever champion. So that's sad news. We wish all his fans, all his family, all his family and friends, if they're watching, our condolences. Another legend gone.
Yeah, it's really sad stuff, particularly given the tragedy with his son, after which he kind of disappeared. Perro Sr. disappeared from the public eye a little bit. Really just offer our deepest condolences and thoughts to everyone related to the matter. Anyway, should we hit the Twitter questions? Let's do it. Got rather interesting mixed bag today, but let's get through
For a change?
Yeah, whoa. I'm trying to find a serious one that we can start off with. Let's start off with the serious one. Who do you want as AEW's first champions, and who do you think they'll be? Dream and realistic booking available. This is from Sean Acklin, and he has given us 3 belts, the world title, the tag titles, the women's title, and a workhorse / mid-card title. He has gone with Paige Hangman as the world champion. Darby Allin is your mid-card workhorse.
Interesting.
Our boys, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, as tag team champions, and Smiley Kylie Ray the human Pikachu as the women's champion.
I will say that I'm delighted by all of them. It looked, I could imagine them all being the case, because I had a major worry when it first started. Because when you knew what the booking was going to be, there was going to be the sort of the Casino Royale and then the number one contenders match between Jericho and Omega. I looked at that and I thought, right, Kenny Omega is the first champion. And fair enough, he's the best wrestler in the world.
Probably should have been, yeah.
Then it's already from day one, there's a little bit of nepotism involved. I was struggling to look past the Bucks as the first tag team champions, and all of a sudden you start to think, God, do you really want to change things here, or do you just want like your own little bit of the spotlight? But now it looks for all the world that like what's going to be Jericho and Page, and I could see it genuinely being Page.
Yeah.
For that one, because he's such an up-and-comer. People are so hot on him. It makes a real statement to give him the belt. Jericho makes a statement in an entirely other way.
Star.
But I don't think it's the kind of one you want to make from day one.
Yeah, the Jericho one's kind of tough, because I was all in favour of Jericho getting the belt first. But the past couple of matches they've been fine, but they haven't been on the same level as the Naito matches and the first Omega match. The recent Omega match was slightly disappointing, and the Okada match was a big disappointment. I'm not sure how durable he'd be as a world champion, so I still think it will be him because he's such a big star, but I'd go with Paige personally. For the women's, Britt Baker.
Britt Baker for me, yeah. I was going to say Britt Baker.
I think she'd make a good first champion, particularly as a heel, when she kind of healed it up a little bit against Kylie Ray in that match, and that would make a good first rivalry as well. Tag team, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy would be boatloads of fun. I think I'd probably go with maybe SCU. Like, they're established, they're over as hell. Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian. Maybe throw Chris Daniels in there. Maybe you can do the old Freebird thing and have them rotate. Mid-card title, if it comes around, Darby Allin's a great shout, but honestly, Cody for me.
I was going to say for the tag titles, I would like them to do some kind of slow build tournament. I would genuinely, if they weren't doing Cody in the Bucks as the match coming up at Fight for the Fallen, I would love them to have had Cody and Dustin as the first tag titles.
That would have been cool. I mean, they might well do that. They do have the tournament. I believe it kicks off at All Out, or it kicks off on the TV, whatever it is. I root for Cody and Dustin.
MJF for mid-card for me. I would just like to take him just out of that main event scene for a little bit, have a really good long-running feud with a load of really good matches in it, build up to him getting there eventually, and I'd say I would love Britt Baker versus Kylie Ray as the first main women's rivalry.
Excellent. Let's get on to the less
Didn't even pick
questions.
ourselves. Look how far we've come.
Magic.
That would have been my first answer for that.
Nepotism. Let's move on. Shannon Dance has a belter of a question here. Which big man of the last 30 years, alive or dead, would you feed the worst wrestler in the world, Tama Tonga, to?
I'm
going to have to say Vader. That's what Shannon says, Vader.
Oh, God, I'm struggling. I would struggle to get past Vader for that one.
I know my answer.
Who was the one from Dirty Sanchez who had the really bad collapsed arsehole?
What?
Yeah, you remember Dirty Sanchez?
No!
They did it. Dirty Sanchez was like...
It's not a wrestling monster.
No, it was the Welsh Jackass.
Okay.
Like, they did MTV UK did their own follow-on from Jackass called Dirty Sanchez. It was all these boys from the valleys, and they were awful, but they loved wrestling. And they did this one episode where they went to some really run-down wrestling show in the valleys in Wales, and they literally fed Pritchard's head to this massive wrestler's collapsed arsehole. So that's...
Wow.
I'll find his name out. But failing that, Kane. The second best big man in the business.
Kane. Well, I'm going to go for the other second best big man in the business, Crete. Anyway, shall we move on?
Phil's dad.
Phil's little
See,
dad.
that would be quite fitting, because obviously Tama's caused Phil no end of like personal strife, hurt and pain. So obviously, you know, Tama likes to set his dad on people. So it'd be nice if Phil could
Haku versus Crater.
Haku versus Crater. Book it, Vince.
Come on, Defiant, put it together. Okay, no, that's Michael Sidgwick destroying someone. This one, our last one, comes from Time Pants, and this is quite the question.
Time Pants?
Time Pants.
To Mr. and Mrs. Pants, a son, Time.
His username is @theman_in_the_pan. So his question here is, you're always talking about banter wrestlers and banter pay-per-views.
Yeah,
and in your opinion, has there ever been anyone in the industry famous for banter? We'd all like to hear your banter about banter. Hashtag this is the banter.
What?
Hashtag money in the banter. Hashtag banter.
Where does banter end and banter begin?
I have no idea what this means. I just liked it.
Right, so let's presume the banter is just like the banter. But banter is when you banter for the sake of the banter. Literally only Wilborn qualifies for that in my book.
Yeah, of course.
And Wilborn hasn't wrestled. We never even got him in a stunner party back in the day.
Wow.
So,
do you reckon we can double this question as an and finally, purely because I haven't found an and finally?
Yes!
Yeah, cool. Like, that's it.
Oh, that was the and finally.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is now
Okay.
because that could be our.
I was about to say this is the last news video before we all go down and watch Wilborn get married, but it's not. It's
There's one this afternoon.
There's one this afternoon and probably 2 more tomorrow.
And
so
tomorrow,
there's 3.
me and Jiggity Jules reforming the Deep Fried See You next Tuesdays.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Gonna rub our heads together and make electricity. Anyway, you can find us on YouTube. You're watching us.
You're watching us on YouTube, you idiot.
You can find us on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. Please send us all your wrestling questions. We love getting them through. We get dozens every day. We will read out some of our favourite ones on air. You can find Adam Cleary on Twitter at
Adam Cleary, CLERY.
You can find me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for ho 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 because it's Christmas or something. Yeah, bye.
Why not? See you later, yeah. Cool. See you at Christmas maybe. Let us know what you're doing because I think there's a spare table at mine. Bye.